Lagos. Good afternoon. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili, and these are your hard facts. Yes, I am back. It's going to take more than illness to keep me away from you. I have a great show for all 630,000 of you. First, the big three. Let's talk about most Nigerian languages being at risk of extinction in 50 years. Then let's talk about the Navy personnel who are going on trial for beating a man to death for trying to settle their quarrel with someone else. And then let's talk about the reactions to the increase in the electricity tariff and the price of petrol. Remember, you can talk to us on Twitter, on Facebook, via YouTube as well. Facebook is Nigeria Info 99.3, Twitter is Nigeria Info FM, and YouTube is Nigeria Info FM. Of course, there's WhatsApp. Get in touch via WhatsApp 080-959-75805, 080-959-75805. And Chukwudi will be here on Community U Report talking to you about something going on in your community. On today's Big Hard Facts, let's talk about wills. Do you have a will? Are you interested in writing a will and you don't know where to begin? You need to listen to us at 5 o'clock. Nika Rongwolo is back. She's a lawyer, and we've been talking to her for the past few weeks about wills. Now, this time, I'm not going to be asking any questions. You will be doing all the asking. So any question you have whatsoever about wills, get ready to call at 5. As soon as it's 5 o'clock, start calling and start asking those questions. I won't be asking any questions. I'll just pick the call and you can ask her. She'll answer. We'll pick the next call. You'll ask her, she'll answer, and that's what we're going to do for the rest of the show. I'm just going to sit back and let her answer you. Now, you get news updates at the top of every hour on today's show, as always, and there's also conversations with Rufai coming your way after the news at 6. You need to listen to every minute of the show so that you can play just a minute. It's not happening right now. It's not happening in the next 1 hour or in the next 2 hours. So don't call if you're calling for just a minute, okay? Right now, it's time for the Big Three.
This is the Big Three.
The Big Three on Hard Facts
on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Can Nigeria's languages be saved from extinction? And if yes, how? Why do military personnel routinely use physical violence against Nigerian citizens? And what do you think about the timing of the electricity tariff increase and the removal of full subsidy? That's our final story. So look forward to having that conversation with me. But those are your big three. Let's talk. Most of Nigeria's indigenous languages may disappear in the next 50 years. That's our first story. Mr. Ado Mohammed Yahuza is very worried about this. He's the executive secretary of the National Institute for Cultural Orientation, NICO. And according to him, even two of our most spoken languages are at risk. Can you guess the two? If you guessed Yoruba and Igbo, you're correct. So, what's causing these languages to disappear? First of all, let's remember that this is not just a Nigerian problem, right? So let's start there. This is not just a Nigerian problem, it's a global problem. According to UNESCO, 90% of all languages worldwide are at risk of extinction within 100 years. That's about 6,300 languages. Basically, only about 700 languages are relatively safe. Those are, first of all, the major languages of international life. So like English or French or Arabic, Spanish. And then you have the languages with large numbers of indigenous speakers like Mandarin, Chinese, Hindi, and Sanskrit. Then you now have the regional languages that are spoken in more than one country, so things like Swahili. And then you now have the languages that are official languages spoken across an entire country, right? Then you now have languages like Kirundi and Kiwanda in Burundi and Rwanda, or Amharic in Ethiopia, or Russian in, Russia. Almost every language doesn't meet this criteria. almost every language that doesn't meet the particular criteria that I've listed so far, because basically, those languages end up being the second choice or the third choice, right? When parents and schools are teaching children how to talk. So the languages that don't meet these criteria as I listed earlier on are endangered. Now, we bring this situation home to Nigeria because I've spent time telling you that this is not just a Nigerian problem. But let's bring it home to Nigeria. NICO, the National Institute for Cultural Orientation, says most of our languages are at risk, even Igbo and Yoruba. And when you think about it, there are many reasons why. Now, if your child could only learn one language in life, and you had to choose between English and your native language, which one would you choose for your child to speak for the rest of her life? Think about it. Let's start with that question first. If your child could only learn one language, now I'm not saying that it's a reality. I'm just saying, let's pretend, hypothetically. If your child could only learn one language in life, and you had to choose between English and your native language, which one would you choose for your child to speak for the rest of her life? Now, if you want your child to succeed in the modern world, you would choose English. That's the language in which lecturers teach in the university. So if you want your child to have a university education, for instance, but you only teach your daughter Igbo or Idoma or Yoruba, you've limited her chances. Abi? So that's the first strike against native languages, right? Because remember that we're talking about the reasons why in Nigeria the languages may be going extinct. So first strike against native languages. If someone wants to teach their child a language that makes them more competitive globally, and they can only teach one language, they typically choose English. Now, if somebody wants to make more parents teach their children the native languages, then they need to start creating the tools for using the native languages to provide formal education. And it's not just a problem in Nigeria or a problem in Africa. All over the world, we're seeing that if the indigenous language cannot provide high-level education, people are switching to English, or they're switching to French, or they're switching to Mandarin. And so you see in places like Wales, for example, that efforts are being made to strengthen the capacity to teach high-level topics in Welsh. And we've had this conversation before. I remember that I was asking how you say radioactivity in Yoruba. How do you say radioactivity in Yoruba? How do you say neural network in Igbo? How do you say covalent bond in Okrika? Until someone somewhere does the hard work of building up the technical vocabulary in those languages, you cannot use them to teach physics or computer science or chemistry. So until then, can we blame anybody for choosing English over their native language for their child? And then we have intermarriage. In my generation, especially among the more educated people, we have more marriages between people from different tribes. My husband and I are from different tribes, and many of my friends are from intertribal marriages as well. So in a house, instead of only one native language competing with English, you now have two. How many children can learn 3 languages? Not many. So 1 or 2 of the native languages will get sacrificed. And then there's the rise of pidgin. We live in a multilingual society, and people want to be able to communicate with everybody. Now, for the more educated, this is not a problem, right? We all speak English. But for the less educated, without English, they would normally be stuck, unable to speak to people from other tribes, right? But now we have pidgin. And more Nigerians are speaking pidgin to bridge the gap. So pidgin is becoming kind of like a lingua franca, like a national native language, if you will. And these are some of the reasons why other native languages are dying. Some. I'm not saying all, but I'm saying some. Now, there's a part of me that also wonders if this is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, first of all, in terms of national unity, think about it. Work with me here. In terms of national unity, if we didn't have native languages or we had fewer languages, wouldn't that make it harder for us to see each other as outsiders? What do you think? 0700-993-993-993. Do you agree that most Nigerian languages are in danger of extinction in 50 years? And do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's neither here nor there? What are your reasons? Do you think an effort should be made to save these languages? How do we go about it? How do we make these languages relevant globally? Because it's not good enough to say, oh, let's save it. Okay, But how do we make it relevant globally? WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. You can tweet at us at Nigeria Info FM. And of course, send a message to us on Facebook, Nigeria Info 99.3. But call the live show 0700-993-993. Now, we already have a lot of great comments on Twitter. So I'm going to take a look at some of them while they are getting ready to pick somebody's call. I already have Samuel from Berger on the line. But let me take this comment right here from Emma Adams, who says, creating recorded and printed resources. Recorded and printed documentation are essential for preserving language, sound, and context. Using digital and social media outlets, insist on speaking your native language. All right. Thank you, Emma Adams, for tweeting at us. Akikbelu Stevens says, language can be saved if we can always use it in communicating in social gatherings and among kinsmen. All right. We've got Demola Bells, who says that we should check Ndebe script. Okay. Let's take that call from Samuel now. Hello, Samuel. Thanks for calling. Hello, Samuel. Are you there? Oh, sorry about that, Samuel. 99.3.
Hello, good afternoon. Sandra Ezekwesili.
Good afternoon.
It's MI from Akoka.
MI, welcome. Welcome.
When you talk about languages, I laugh. Sandra, you know, I speak 3 languages that are not my original language.
Wow.
But you know I'm not Igbo, right? You know, right?
I don't know that because you're always speaking Igbo.
Exactly. I'm not Igbo, I'm not Yoruba, and I'm not Hausa.
Wow. Do you speak your native language? Where are you from?
I'm from Akwa Ibom.
Do you speak your native language?
Very well, 100%.
Okay.
So I think people need to get a balance because people, I don't know, first, we see this thing as, oh, I don't want to be seen as local. Local does not mean inferior. English is somebody's local language, right? So while it's good to be expressive in English, written and oral, it also needs to be versed because language is more than communication, it's about culture. Do you understand?
Okay.
It's not about religion. Always some things you can't say in English, like you just happier like that. Do you understand? So it's not about communication, it's culture. You enrich a culture by telling the history of it. So when you say something like, that's why I like my friend, you may not know, you may have heard about that. Lotana, Sugar Belly.
Okay.
In their script. Do you understand? Make it easy for people to write their language for contemporary people. So I think people like that should learn that, should be encouraged to develop for other languages, to find out contemporary speakers should learn easier ways to write it because there's always too stressful. Someone to just do the hard work, like you mentioned, you know, and make it easy for people to convey. So languages are very interesting. Like you need to know. Because you travel a lot. You don't sit down in your house. I travel a lot. Not now that I'm in Lagos. I'm stuck in Lagos for 6 months. I travel. I learn other languages, other culture, and it helps my job. And whatever. So I think it's a very good idea.
All right, MI. Thanks for calling us. Joseph in Banana Island. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Do you agree that most Nigerian languages are in danger of extinction in 50 years?
Even 50 years to me, it's too much.
Okay.
Yeah, one reason I don't know, one reason, but I do believe is this intermarriages.
Okay.
intermarriages in times when they give birth now. Maybe the husband is from Igbo, the wife is from Yoruba, and they're based in Lagos. The children might end up speaking Yoruba.
Okay.
The Igbo language will be neglected if the family of the father is not coming. So if it continues like that, I won't lie to you. Some children will just forget about maybe the father's language or the mother's language. So some parts of the languages will be forgotten.
Do you think that we need to do anything to save it? Do you think any effort should be made to save the languages?
Yes, of course.
How do we go about it?
Yeah, in Lagos, for example, now, we won't say because we are in Lagos, we can only learn the Yoruba language, the French. We should at least try to put other tribes, their languages into it. Give them the choice to follow their own Igbo, Efik, Ibibio. Even with that, we can even create more employment for teachers.
Oh, you're saying we should teach these languages in secondary schools and primary schools?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So have each student choose the language they want to learn in secondary school?
Yeah.
I see.
Primarily their own language, where they hail from.
I see.
Like me, I grew up in Lagos now.
Okay.
I'm from Akwa Ibom State. I grew up in Lagos.
Okay.
I can write Yoruba. I can speak Yoruba fluently.
Okay.
But since I can't speak my language fluently, I can't write my language fluently.
Wow.
I can write Yoruba exam 10 times and I'll pass, which I'm sure I'm starting on. But you know, that kind of a thing. And all this we failing to go to travel back home, all this kind of a thing still affects. You know, we have all this belief that we have all these witches and wizards at home and they will haunt us.
That's a conversation for a different day. Joseph, thank you so much for calling me. I appreciate it. Uday is in Ogun State. Hello, Uday. Welcome. Hello? Uday? Uday, sorry about that. You know, a question that I would like to ask, because Joseph said something, and he said something that I found interesting. If we traveled more, perhaps we would learn our languages, right? But if a language is only useful when you travel to the village, then how useful is that language? How useful is that language? And then MI called and he said, he knows how to speak like 4 languages, right? But not everybody can learn 4 languages. So you take, for instance, I don't know what MI studied in the university. And one of the questions I always ask when we talk about languages is, could MI's syllabus have been translated into any of the Nigerian languages that he learned? Because that's how you make a language stay. That's how you save a language from extinction. If you just joined the show, hello. You're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Our first story is that most of Nigeria's indigenous languages may disappear in the next 50 years. Mr. Ado Mohammed Yahuza, who is the Executive Secretary of the National Institute for Cultural Orientation, NICO, says that he's very worried that even 2 of our most spoken languages, 2 of our 3 most spoken languages are at risk. And 2 of those languages are Yoruba and Igbo. And, we took a look at some of the things that are causing these languages to go into, that could make these languages go into extinction, right? So the first thing the first question I asked you when we started talking was, if your child could only learn one language and you had to choose between English and your native language, which one would you choose? And I told you that if you want your child to succeed in the modern world, you would probably choose English. Because when your child gets to the university, that's the language that the lecturers are teaching in. If you want your child to have a university education, but you only teach her Igbo or Idoma or Yoruba, you've just limited her chances. If you want your child to learn more languages, then we need more people who will start creating the tools for using the native languages to provide formal education. And earlier on, I mentioned that this is not just a Nigerian problem. All over the world, we're seeing that if the indigenous language cannot provide high-level education, people switch to English or French or Mandarin. So places like Wales, I use them as an example, are being very intentional about how they are trying to ensure that their languages are more mainstream. So they're making efforts to strengthen their capacity to teach high-level topics in Welsh. One of the things I was asking is if we have somebody somewhere building up the technical vocabulary in the languages we have in Nigeria so that you can use these languages to teach physics or computer science or chemistry. Because if we don't have that, can we really blame anybody for choosing English over their native language for their child? And then I mentioned intermarriage, and when Joseph called, he also talked about intermarriage, right? My generation of couples are mostly from different tribes. So you have a house where instead of just one native language competing with English, you now have two. How many children can learn 3 languages like MI? Not many. So 1 or 2 of the native languages will get sacrificed. And then I now talked about pidgin, right? These are some of the reasons why our languages may go extinct in the next 50 years. Now, do you agree that it could happen? Do you agree that most Nigerian languages are in danger of extinction in 50 years? Do you think it's a bad thing? Do you think it's a good thing? Do you think it's neither here nor there? Because remember, I said that a part of me doesn't think that this is, that big of a problem, the pidgin thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. First of all, in terms of national unity, if we did not have native languages or we had fewer languages, wouldn't that make it harder for us to see each other as outsiders? What do you think? 0700-993-993-993. I hope Christopher is still there. Hello, Christopher. Oh, he's not there anymore. Sorry about that. We've got WhatsApp available. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. 080-959-75805. The only way to save our native languages is to inculcate it at all levels of education, whether nursery, primary, secondary, higher institutions. I think colleges of education, faculties of education should be given the responsibility to train teachers in these areas. Blessing from Ojodu Berger. But Blessing, like I said, do we have technical vocabulary for Efik, for Idoma, for languages that I don't even know in Birom, in a Jos, for instance, sorry. Right? Do we have the technical vocabulary for that? Are we doing anything to create that right now? Or are we just lamenting, our languages are going extinct? Are we doing anything actively to fix that problem? Michael is in Ikorodu. Hello, Michael.
Good afternoon, Sandra.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
Very well.
Very interesting topic about language.
Mm-hmm.
We can have one voice in Nigeria. It is the man, Adu, that said that he's set up about the language going in extinction. It should not be perturbed, it should not be worried. What I think they need to do is a group of people that are, well learned. That's the purpose for them to go and study in the university and to uphold and embrace Nigerian, to have one voice. Like what you said about the broken language or pidgin language. Mm-hmm. There are other languages that they can bring together and interweave together, and they can make it one language. But the problem is laziness. I'm sorry to use the word because that is their prerogative, their duty to do for the country, to keep our culture, to keep our language. Why do I need to speak in English? Why do I need to go and rack my brain to, this is a hard work for some people that they were not brought up with an English language. After further, I'll go to another language to go and study another language. It's an hard work. But why can't we, our lecturers, our intellect people, that they are in that high places, not to worry, but to do something about it? That is my contribution, Sandra.
All right. Michael, thanks for calling. Michael says, why worry instead of actually doing something about it? Sandra, good afternoon. The Chinese are successful and they don't speak other languages much more as we do. We should encourage other local languages as we do the international languages. I spoke Igbo language in the bank and my senior colleague shunned me, and she's Igbo too, Chike says. Chike, the Chinese don't speak other languages, but even that has been limiting. That's why they've been trying really, really hard to now start learning English. That's why they're doing more to have more of their media, be represented in English, because English is one of the most spoken languages in the world. So, there's a kind of colonization that is going on at the moment. And the only way for that to happen is if you have language on your side. And if you talk to the analysts and the observers, they'll say to you that the Chinese will probably have been more dominant in global politics if they did not have the language barrier. So that's something to think about. Kayode is in Ajao Estate. Hello, Kayode.
Hello, Sandra. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, isn't this language issue? We have to really put it in perspective. Number one, most of these researches that predict the extinction of languages are actually carried out in the metropolis. You realize that when you come to the city centers, people of different and diverse backgrounds come together to live and work and do business and associate. There is marriages, there are different things that happen there. Of course, there's a limit to the number of ways you have to communicate. So everybody's language cannot be upheld. But if we go back to the villages, to everybody's hometown, those languages are still predominant there and they are being upheld. The traditions and co are being upheld in those places. So, but as long as globalization and co are going on, of course, it's a valid. It has to be like that.
Yeah, but the population in the village is shrinking because more people in the villages are moving to the cities, right?
Yeah, but of course, not people. But the villages are not going to go extinct. Villages will never go extinct. There will always be people in the villages that will uphold this thing. And then, so what we need to encourage is to make sure that as much as possible, we encourage people to always go back to where they come from and integrate their children with their beliefs, their historical.
But you know that villages are becoming more and more urban. So you take a place like Ekpe, for instance. Ekpe was somebody's village once upon a time, but Ekpe is opening up. It's becoming a city on its own, right? And you have more and more people who are not from Ekpe living in Ekpe.
Sandra,
Ikoro do the same thing.
Even a place like Ekpe, Badagi, their language will not go extinct in those places. My village, you should come to my village. You'll be ashamed of not knowing how to speak my language. I'm telling you the truth. You'll be ashamed that if I do write your English, that's the truth. Yes, because it's honest. You find that you are out of place, that you can't even speak the language, and it's beautiful when you hear people speaking it. But of course, I live in Lagos. I work in Lagos. I have Igbo as my neighbor. I have people from Akwa Ibom. What you do, there has to be, everybody has to speak their language. So I really think the research, the assumptions adopted when these researches were being carried out, we really need to look into it and let's place the problem in the right place.
All right.
The problem is not placed rightly.
Okay. All right, Kayode. Thank you for calling. I appreciate it. We've got somebody who responded to Michael, who said that we should interweave the local languages instead of using pidgin. And he says, well, we tried that. We tried to invent a language here in Nigeria. We called it Wazobia. Wa from Yoruba, Zo from Hausa, Bia from Igbo. It didn't work because it is hard to encourage adoption of artificial languages. The same thing happened with Esperanto on the global space. All right. Thank you for sending your message across. I appreciate that, Andy. We've got Chika in Apapa. Hello, Chika. Thanks for calling.
Hi, good afternoon, Sandra.
Good afternoon.
Well, I think what an interesting topic. But I want to see it from the point of a failure of society.
Okay.
Failure of society in the sense that, and it starts from the family. Because most of the reason why some of the Nigerian language are going into extinction, it's starting from the family. Because let's put aside the issue of interwoven marriage. You go to some family today, for example, you see two Easterners as a couple. And while raising children, they start raising their children with English language as against the Igbo language.
Okay.
And it got to a point whereby, and once you miss it from the early stage, it becomes so difficult to integrate it as part of you again. Because of what I do, I meet different set of people every day from different tribes. I met two particular siblings 2 weeks ago, and we had a conversation for about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, they now struck me to ask, what's your name? One responded, Chinelo. What's your name? The other responded, Chizaba. And I try conversing with them in Igbo language, and they told me that, who does it help? That was their response, and I was marveled.
But you know that the Igbo one has roots in the Biafra War, right?
Yeah?
You know that the reluctance to speak Igbo in certain places has its roots in the Biafra War, but that's a conversation we can't have today.
Yeah, that's the conversation we can have today, and that is why I said that it started from the family. Because I do see no reason whereby a parent starts conversing with their children with their local dialect from infants, and they wouldn't imbibe it and sustain it. Like in my family, is a culture, is a practice. I mean, in as much as we are all educated to the level of secondary school, I mean, everybody still communicates in Igbo language up to today. And I try as much as I can to replicate the same thing with my younger nephews and cousins. Because if we didn't start it up from now, it goes to a point whereby we begin to lose it. Again, it also has to do with our education system, our educational curriculum. It goes to a point that whereby if you go to most of our secondary schools today, particularly private school, primary and secondary school, you find out that they are not teaching any Nigerian languages, but they are teaching either German, French, or Portuguese. So it's also failure in the part of our educational curriculum again. And also the issue of interest also has to come in. I'm from Southeast. I'm an Igbo. I speak Yoruba. I speak Hausa.
Wow.
Not necessarily because I've gone to stay anywhere in Hausa land, but I just developed the interest because I know that a day will come whereby I might find myself in a situation whereby I need to speak that Hausa language. Because if I find myself in the midst of those that do not understand English and the only what they understand is Hausa, what do? Do I become aloof? No. That is why we also have to develop that interest again. You have some of our brothers that are from other tribes that have been in Lagos, for example, say 20, 30 years, and they cannot speak a common Yoruba. I'm not actually putting any blame on them, but I think it's behold on us to begin to see these are other languages as part of, integral part of us. Because the truth of the matter is that we cannot live in isolation. I'm in Lagos today. I need to converse in Yoruba because I get to a point whereby I need to speak Yoruba. You also have some other tribes in Nigeria that reside in some other tribes, but they cannot speak the same language. So I think for me, first and foremost, there's a need for us to start it from the family level, then advance it to the larger society whereby we develop interest and see this language.
Hey, Chica. Oh, no, Chica, sorry about that. All right, if you can call us back, we will appreciate that. Okay, let's move to our second story. This language conversation is great talk. I think we're going to, have this conversation again next week. Yeah, so let's have it again next week. Big hard fact. We'll have it for a long, long time. We've got comments here from Yomi who says that language barrier is a big issue that God has put in the world from the Bible. Wahala go day in the future. That particular Bible story, you don't want to hear what I think about it. We've got somebody who says, Sandra, I agree with the fact that Igbo language will go extinct first. For that to not happen, I suggest we use our indigenous languages to teach from secondary schools. But how do we make that globally competitive? Because you're not raising local champions. You're raising people who you hope can do business globally, right? But again, conversation for next week. We've got somebody who says it's a simple thing for children to learn their native language. When our educational institutions start teaching our languages in the schools, we will have headway. Yeah, that brings me back to something that Chika said earlier on when he was talking about these languages. And you see, learning languages as an adult is difficult. I'm right now learning French. I'm using an app called no, I should not give the app free advertising. They should pay me for advertising. But I'm learning French at the moment, and I'm learning French as an old woman, and it's difficult because your brain gonna bag it tim like, what is this? What is this? What is this? You know, so it's difficult to do. So I often don't blame those who've lived in a particular state for a long time and they don't know how to speak the dominant language in that state. It's not because, you know, they feel like they're better than everybody or they don't just want to mingle. It's a difficult thing to do, right? My people say sometimes, you know, they learn new dance for old age. For some people, they can learn it, but for a lot of people, they cannot learn it. Now, our second story, a Navy man will face court-martial for beating a civilian to death. His name is Awosanya Olufemi, and he is an enlisted man who is at the rank of rating. He's accused of killing a man named Collins Osagie in Ukumaiko. Now, this is what allegedly happened. Awosanya bought an item worth 250 naira from an electronics dealer. Later on, he came back to return it for some reason. The trader refused to collect the item or to refund Awosanya his 250 naira. Awosanya went back to his barracks, came back with 8 of his colleagues. By that point, the trader had run away. But Collins Osagie, who saw the whole thing, decided to make peace. So he offered to give Awosanya the 250 naira. The Navy men got so angry with him for just suggesting it that they allegedly started beating him up. In fact, somebody recorded the beating and it went viral on social media. And now Osagie is dead. So the police swung into action. They arrested Awosanya and now they've handed him over to the Navy, who say that they will court-martial him. They also say that they've arrested his accomplices. The Navy spokesperson said, quote, "It's a full-scale investigation. Everybody concerned with that issue is in custody. Once an action is taken, we will let you know. We don't condone such things." End quote. So that's that story. That's the story. Now, what I want us to talk about is the use of violence on civilians by military personnel. It's not the first case. In fact, it's so common that it has almost become an expected thing, right? You hear jokes like, don't provoke army or they will flog you. They will flog jump you. If na police, you fit beg. But Navy, they go drill you. But nobody has the right to beat you up. Nobody, not a security agent, not a government official, not a member of the military, nobody. So how come we've gotten to the point where it is just normal for military personnel to beat up Nigerians or torture them or perform any type of physical violence? I still remember in 1999, at the beginning of the Fourth Republic, one day, then President Obasanjo was at a public event and he was walking. He saw a soldier flogging some civilians in the name of crowd control. Obasanjo got so angry, he took a cane to flog the soldier. And he said, those days are over. Soldiers cannot beat up civilians anymore. Now, of course, President Obasanjo was also wrong to beat the soldier. I'm not advocating that. I'm talking about the point that he made. That the days of soldiers beating up Nigerians are over. 1999 was 21 years ago. 21 years later, Collins Osagie is dead because Navy men beat him up. Why have Obasanjo's words 2 decades later not come to pass? 0700-993-993-993. Why do Nigerians still suffer brutality and violence at the hands of military personnel? Why do so many military personnel believe they have the right to beat up Nigerians? Is there anything we can do to end this illegality? WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. We've got Kende and Jegunle on the line with us. Hello, Kende. Thank you so much for calling us. Kende, hello. Thanks for calling.
Yes, about the civilian issue, Navy beating out the civilians. This thing has been happening for a very long time. Now, we claim to be in democracy. This is not democracy at all. We don't have any democracy. If this is the definition of democracy, then we will not want it. We don't want it. This is the kind of democracy we claim to have, whereby you cannot even speak. Hello, ma?
Yes, I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
I happened to be in a Fanagam bus one of those days, and then I saw a policeman collecting bribes, and I was murmuring. I was murmuring out loud, and the guy asked me, and he said something. If I take you to Barak now and beat you, they will say that police people are wicked.
Wow.
So, I don't know. This thing has been for a very long time, and
Do you think it can be over? Do you think there's anything we can do about it?
Those who are supposed to speak are not speaking.
Who are those who are supposed to speak?
Everybody is afraid and all that, and our laws, I don't know.
Okay, thank you for calling me. We've got Lillian in Ibejuleki on the line. Hello, Lillian.
Hello, ma. Good afternoon, ma.
Good afternoon.
Please, I win just a minute since last month on 20th.
You've been paid, no?
No.
I was informed that you've been paid.
No. They have not even collect my account number. Just say he will call me.
No, we have your account number, Lillian. We have your account number.
No.
Okay, stay on the line. Let them collect your call and collect your account number. We've got somebody on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. And we've got this comment here from Chidi who says that some people are not proud of where they are from. That's the problem. All right, Chidi. This is so sad. Don't send me BCs when I'm on air. Why are you so bad-mannered? We've got somebody who says the spate of brutal actions by military personnel is rather disheartening these days. Looking at the spate of harassments Nigerians face these days based on the brutal manner and unethical ways that military personnel carry out their activities is a big issue because the system is riddled with many flaws. It's time to carry out a total reorientation of all military personnel irrespective of their rank and position. The issue has remained a hydra-headed monster. The ability to speak in your mother tongue cannot be overemphasized. It is the glue that binds Nigerians together and enables us to communicate our feelings, values, etc. All hands must be on deck to prevent unpopular languages from fading into extinction. Parents should endeavor to communicate with their children in the indigenous language at home. Also, government and stakeholders should develop a workable primary and secondary curriculum that fully integrates local language to give our future leaders a wholesome identity and experience. Now, we've got a comment here from Edwin in Ikeja who says, I am from Bayelsa, but if my daughter's school wants to teach her Ijaw instead of French or Mandarin, I will withdraw her. Interesting. Edwin says Ijaw language can only help her in the Niger Delta, but French and Mandarin can help her globally. Interesting. All right, then. Our final story on the show today. The president says he feels Nigerians' pain, but the electricity tariff and fuel price hikes are unavoidable. So you already know that the electricity tariff has gone up for consumers in areas that receive the most power, right? And of course, the price of petrol just went up as well. This is a conversation that you had with Agogo yesterday. We had this conversation with Agogo and a representative from one of the distribution companies, right? So, it's a conversation that all over the country, everyone's talking about it. Everyone has something to say about it, Now, the price of petrol earlier this year, NNPC announced that they will no longer subsidize petrol. But instead, the price would be set to reflect the market price. So what we saw at first was the prices start to drop, right? Because petrol was cheap at that time. But now, petrol prices have climbed up, in part because the naira dropped against the dollar. And of course, importers buy fuel in USD. Now, a lot of Nigerians are murmuring about these increases. Various labor unions are threatening industrial action. Civil society groups are saying the timing is wrong because of COVID-19, the loss of jobs, loss of revenue. Opposition party PDP is saying president should take the pains of Nigerians into account. And presidency is responding. The vice president spoke on behalf of the president. And he said that the president understands the pain of Nigerians, but the increases are unavoidable. He said, quote, "There are several negative consequences if the government should resume the business of fixing or subsidizing PMS prices. First of all, it would mean a return to the costly subsidy regime. Today we have 60% fewer revenues and we just cannot afford the cost." End quote. So according to the presidency, between 2006 and last year, the government has spent over 10 trillion naira on petrol subsidy. That's the budget of 1 year. Now, you now have the issue of electricity tariff. Presidency also says that one too is unavoidable since the cost of supplying power is higher than what you and I are paying for it. So basically, power sector is losing money. But still, presidency has insisted that only areas that receive more than 12 hours of power a day on average should see an increase. Now, like I said, on the show yesterday, the Big Hard Fact, I spoke with Wala Joseph. Wala Joseph is the legal officer of Ecodisco. And he asked her what criteria were being used to determine which areas will get a tariff increase. He also asked her the full rationale for this increase, right? And he also asked her why this is happening in spite of the earlier call from the National Assembly to provide free electricity during COVID-19. You know, when she was asked about that particular tariff change, right, she said something very interesting.
The free electricity talk came to us as a shock because if there was going to be free power, the government would have had to pay the discos for the power that was used. Because they're gas suppliers, they're generation companies. These labor workers you're talking about are employees of distribution companies, they're employees of transmission companies, they're employees of generation companies. We pay them from these tariffs. So I think, first of all, the Ghanaian one, I'm not sure. I don't have enough details about that to say if it was true or not. You know, I wouldn't say that our power industry has gotten to the stage Ghana's one has gotten to, because I don't think Ghana's light goes off as often. So, and I think generally in Nigeria, we have a very peculiar environment. We're very peculiar people. And we operate quite differently. That's the truth. So we really can't compare. It won't be fair to compare. We're more or less starting this power journey.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right.
So we're still trying to get a lot of things right.
Right.
You know, in terms of labor is fighting for the labor. And the labor is who are the labor? Who is the labor? The labor is basically the people that work in Ecodisco, people that work in Ikeja, people that work in Alist. They are employees, and we're trying to give our employees a better, at least let them have a job. Is the way I should put it, because we were also hit hard by COVID-19, but we tried as much as possible, all the discos, not to disengage any staff. I can't think of any disco that let go any of his staff during this COVID period, where a lot of organizations were letting staff go. So at the end of the day, whatever it is that we're doing is actually to ensure we can make the industry sustainable, is to get the industry to the next level. For years, we've had a shortfall that has progressively increased, for years, and it's grown bigger and bigger. It's like a debt that is owed to the distribution company. That they need to have a cutoff date. The earlier, the better. So we were not paying generation companies their full costs. We were not able to get our full revenue requirements. So it was we didn't even have enough capex. The tariff didn't even give us enough to get our capex going. So we couldn't even invest in the network. We could not invest in the network. So it's not. It was, like I said, it was something that needed to be done. It's a difficult time. We had these plans were already in the pipeline before coronavirus came. We ought to have actually started July 1st, if I recollect, but it was moved to September 1st to just give people some time to settle in and all that. But it had to be done. It had to be done. And we honestly just appeal to the union to just, align and try to understand where it is that we are going with this. What they generally used was the minimum average of supply for each area. So and like I mentioned earlier, the frequency of interruptions, the duration of the interruptions, the voltage levels over a period of a month. So for every service, in determining the bands, they said, okay, you must give 20 hours to this service band, and they mustn't experience more than 2 interruptions in a day. They mustn't have more than 4 hours of course, if you have 20 hours of power, it means your power shouldn't go for more than 4 hours in that day, and we must resolve their complaints within 4 hours in a day. So in terms of average response time in resolving complaints. So NERC just basically put all of that into brackets. So it's NERC's way of compelling the distribution companies to increase their service level if they want to charge more. That's just, I mean, if we want to be able to bill you the band A, for instance, we need to ensure that we increase the amount of reduce the frequency of your interruptions. We have to ensure we reduce the duration of the interruptions, and we respond to your complaint in a shorter possible time. So once we're able to achieve that, the customer gets a better, of course, is willing and able and happy to pay more, and then definitely the customer gets a higher tariff. It was quite critical that the tariff revision was done. There were a couple of issues in the industry that needed to be taken care of. We didn't have a cost-reflective tariff for a very, very long time. And that was creating a huge burden on the balance sheet of NBET and on the industry as a whole. There were issues bordering on forex and inflation mismatch. The forex used for the foreign exchange rate used for the tariffs were drastically low compared to what the actual forex rate is. And also there was an inflation mismatch. So the inflation figures used were also different. There was an energy cost mismatch as well, and then the losses that were also reflected were not correct losses. And I'm sure there was a lot of hullabaloo about the ATC&C losses when the discos took over initially in 2013.
Right.
And I know you've been following the power industry closely, so you must know about this. And there was in 2013 when they took over the assets, the ATC&C loss that was recorded were not what we actually met on ground. So we had to more or less recalibrate those. We got independent consultants, the KPMGs, the PwCs, to come and revalidate our ATC&C losses. They also had unrealistic assumptions for energy. And then there was a tariff freeze in 2016 that, of course, there's been a lot of inflation and a lot of things, and there was a freeze in 2016 that wasn't taken care of.
Right.
So it was way overdue. And I'm sure you probably have heard about the point in time when the discos were kicking against it, and that was because of the virus. The pandemic gave us some concern. We were of the opinion it was not a good time. We felt it was going to be hard on Nigerians. We've canvassed for it for years, but when we saw the way the country was going in terms of the pandemic, we were really concerned. But eventually we realized that it was something that needed to be done. We just needed to move. And that's why this has happened.
Wala Joseph is the legal officer of Eco Disco, and she was on air yesterday answering questions about the criteria being used to determine which areas will get a tariff increase. She also spoke about the full rationale for the increase. She also talked about why this was happening in spite of the earlier call from the National Assembly to provide free electricity. You heard her say that even that came as a shock to them who are the discos. Yes, that conversation happened yesterday. If you missed it and you want to listen to the full interview, search for Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili. It's available as a podcast, so listen to our latest episode. That's where that interview is available. I know you have so much to say and so much to talk about, but go ahead and leave your thoughts for us online, right? Facebook, Nigeria Info 99.3, Twitter at Nigeria Info FM, and YouTube, Nigeria Info FM as well. You can also leave comments on our podcast, by the way. And when we come on air the next day, we'll take the comments that you leave on the podcasts for us, right? So you've heard from a co-distribution company. I've told you what the presidency had to say about the fuel scarcity and the electricity price hike. I want to hear from you online. What do you think about these increases? What do you think about the presidency's point that the government can no longer afford subsidy because revenues have crashed sharply under COVID-19? What about what the disco is saying about the tariffs being lower than the cost of supplying power? Talk to us on the internet, Nigeria Info FM, Nigeria Info 99.3, Hard Facts with Sandra Ezekwesili as the podcast, and of course, we have got Facebook, Nigeria Info 99.3. I have Yvonne here. Yvonne is here to bring you business news at the top of the hour. And after that, community report to Chukwudi. I am Sandra Ezekwesili.
It's 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock.